How to study rock and roll. In this lesson, we will explore one song, Chuck Berry's Johnny Be Good, released on Chess Records in 1958, and suggest several analytical frameworks in which one can deepen one's understanding of the song. We'll be using a listening template, using a timeline to understand the song's historical context, understanding rock and roll as a visual culture, understanding rock and roll as performance, understanding rock and roll as a literary form, and understanding the industry and technology of rock and roll. The objective is to understand a recording in the most complete way possible. I can use a listening template to understand a song. I can use a timeline to understand the historical context in which a song was created. I can understand rock and roll as a visual culture. I can understand rock and roll as performance. I can understand rock and roll as a literary form. And I can understand the industry and technology of rock and roll. Using the listening template to understand a song. Please open your packets to the listening template. You'll notice that it has two songs on there, My Girl and Johnny Be Good. My Girl's listening template's all filled out for you. So what I want you to do is, as we listen and watch this song, follow along on your listening guide. See how they responded to the questions.
I've got sunshine on a cloudy day. When it's cold outside, I've got the month of May. I guess you'd say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, my girl. Talking about my girl, my girl. I've got too much honey to be sending me. Oh yes, I've got a sweeter song than the birds in the tree. Well, I guess you'd say, what can make me feel this way? My girl, my girl, my girl. Talking about my girl, my girl.
Now let's compare that to Johnny Be Good. This listening template's not already filled out for you, so do your best to answer the questions in the boxes below.
Oh, deep down in Louisiana, close to New Orleans, way back up in the woods among the evergreens, there stood a log cabin made of earth and wood, where lived a country boy named Johnny Be Good, who never ever learned to read or write too well, but he could play a guitar just like a ringing a bell. Oh, go, go, Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, 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 Johnny, go, go. Oh, Johnny, go, go. Whoa, Johnny Be Good. He used to carry his guitar and a gun in his sack. Was sitting beneath the tree by the railroad track. Oh, the engineer was seen sitting in the shade, strumming with the rhythm that the driver made. People passing by, they would stop and say, oh, my, was that a little country boy to play? Go, go.
You'll have the next 3 minutes to talk with the person sitting next to you about your listening maps and comparing these two performances that were very different from each other. Please turn to your neighbor now and begin talking. This is your 1-minute warning. Please wrap up your conversations. Okay, your time is up. Let's return back to our presentation. Using the timeline to understand a song's context. For music related, let's take a look at the Billboard chart for the last week of May 1958, which is in your packets. Take a look at some of the other artists on the page, some of which will not be familiar with, however, some of them will be. Notice the other artists on the chart stem from a variety of different genres. Johnny B. Good was at number 8 and the only rock song in the top 10. Some non-music related things that were going on during this time period. Major ones would be the National Guard called into Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas in 1957 to promote integration in schools. American Bandstand, a local television show, joins the ABC network in 1957, and this was huge for music. Disneyland was opened to the public in 1955. And the passage of the Federal Aid Highway creates Interstate Highway System in 1958, or 1956. Also a huge development for the U.S. Understanding rock and roll as a visual culture. Film, TV, and fashion. Not surprisingly, popular music is typically studied as music. The experience of popular music, however, is never just about sound. Since rock and roll's beginning, artists have always been seen as much as heard. Elvis Presley caused a certain fervor on the basis of image alone. When people discussed the Beatles breaking into the American market in a big way, they talked about the band's Ed Sullivan Show appearance. For artists of today, such as Lady Gaga, image is only that much more important. No surprise, then, that our study of rock and roll extends deeply into the visual realm. This level of analysis is about the look, fashion, the body, the televisual, photographic, and cinematic presentation. There are numerous other artists that use their appearance and other showmanship ways to promote themselves. Think of all the rap artists that have their own clothing brand. That was definitely not something that was heard of at those times. Understanding rock and roll as performance, dance, live shows, and theater. This approach is, in some ways, an extension of the visual analysis of rock and roll, but performance may be better understood as a marriage of the sound culture and the visual culture of the music. To get the full effect of the musician's power as an artist, we need to see this performance. Likewise, much hip-hop has a strong performative quality. An artist's body approach to transmitting a song, his energy, his dance, is often what is remembered best when we can see the song being performed. But performance is more than a single artist or a group moving in space as they play a song live. Performance is also about the stage set, the choreography, the lighting, the venue, the fans' bodily response to the music, whether in dance or in the absence of dance. One might think of it as a kind of theater, an analysis as such. There are actors, costumes, choreography, stage conventions, audience conventions. If at times the musicians claim they are unconcerned about any of this, that position too is kind of a theatrical strategy. For instance, in a singer-songwriter genre, performers eschew much of the theater, but the scene in which they perform was theater nonetheless, with more intimate lighting, increased talk between songs, costumes that were consciously anti-costumes, street clothes, but of course not just any street clothes. An extension of this model of analysis, as we suggested above, relates to the audience and its response to the music. Whether with Chubby Checker's The Twist or in early punk rock, audience participation through dance or other forms of interactivity is central to how the artist's performances unfold. To study the audience is to grasp something of the culture in which the music is enmeshed. In the case of Chuck Berry's clip, dancing is key to the scene. There is a physical dialogue between the performer and the crowd that surrounds him. Indeed, it was a time when music and dance were intimately tied. That would change over time. One could compare this performance of Berry to one of Howlin' Wolf's, a label mate of Berry, to great effect. Let's take a look. Whoops.